Welcome in to Big Hitters Only. It is Thursday, January 22nd at 9:42 a.m. We have Riley Davis on to talk UNC hoops. But first, a new promo code for Rowback. The BHO21 got compromised by bots. So the new promo code is Big Hitters 20. Big Hitters 20, BIGHITTERS 20, Big Hitters 20. 20% off everything at Rowback, your first order. Riley, what's up, man?
Not much, dude. I feel like I had seen this, that Rowback is a Big Hitters Only sponsor. I can't remember if we talked about this, but they've taken care of us at Sleepers as well. So shout out to Rowback. Yeah. Great sponsor. Great. Unknowingly, little product promotion right here.
There we go. And I have one of their sweatshirts on. Their UNC stuff's great. But yeah, it's been pretty good for us and people using that code and telling their friends, and helps us just pay the back end guys, Garrett and Connor behind the scenes. All right, Riley. So UNC defeats Notre Dame 91-69. We're going to get into that first, and then kind of dive into some bigger picture stuff with UNC coming off the two losses to Cal and to Stanford, and really like the SMU loss that kind of bled into a Wake Forest game they probably should have lost or could have lost. So they lost 3 of the last 4, and they beat Notre Dame. But Notre Dame's pretty bad, man. They're a pretty untalented team. It didn't really give UNC too many issues. Mm-hmm. So Notre Dame quickly, is there anything to take away from this game? I think UNC just looked a little better, sharper, hit some open threes. Kyan Evans, 9 points, 3 for 5, kind of hit the threes you expect him to hit. Jaden Young gets a start. Derek Dixon gets a start. Jaden Young hits a 3. Derek Dixon goes 3 for 5. But Henry Vasar, plus 30. Caleb Wilson looked great. But I don't take much from this game because I think that the tough teams are where UNC is going to struggle.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think on one hand, Carolina has a couple of these games every year in the Dean Dome where they start draining open threes, and it doesn't matter what the opponent does. And it's even happened, I go back to the 2023 season when UNC missed the tournament, and I believe that same type of game happened against Virginia and maybe Clemson as well in the Dean Dome, where it was okay, maybe UNC's figuring some things out, but it turns out it was just overmatched opponents, so where you don't want to read too much into it. I guess at the same time, just coming out of this 2 to 3 week stretch, at least there's some signs of life, some signs of optimism. I thought the communication on the defensive side of the ball was better. It didn't seem like guys were as confused when they're supposed to switch, what the backside defense was doing, things like that. I thought across the board they seemed a little bit more connected on that end. And maybe if you really want to say what does this mean for the Heels long term for the rest of the season, you can point to Derek Dixon's performance, double figures, back-to-back games now. It does make me wonder a little bit, are any of those losses a different outcome if Carolina goes to Dixon as the starting point guard after the Kentucky win? I thought after that performance, I really assumed that he was just going to seize the starting role at the point guard spot and never look back. And maybe it's a little slower since then. I wonder because he's really struggled defensively all year to where I don't know if that helps any of these the Cal loss or the Stanford loss. But you do look at Stanford and SMU; those games were shootouts, and maybe if you're getting more production out of your one, Carolina's able to pull those games off or something. But yeah, I think that's probably the bright side in terms of the guard rotation. I thought the minutes distribution worked out well last night, which over the 3 of the 4 losses, it seemed like that entire 4-game stretch felt like Hubert and co were just throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck. And even from my perspective, it was frustrating to see, Jaden Young would get thrown in there for 2 or 3 possessions and get pulled. Jonathan Powell would get thrown in there for 2 possessions and get pulled. And I get sometimes some of the rationale where it's okay, these guys are making a bad mistake. They're bench guys. They have a shorter leash. But just across the board, I would guess the backcourt would be performing better if the roles were more clearly defined or they knew what their minutes expectation could be.
So let's get into that. I agree completely. If you're going to start Jaden Young and Derek Dixon, let them play. I mean, Jaden Young, even though he started, only played 14 minutes last night. Maybe he did something really great in practice and it was kind of a reward and to kind of send a message that, we need effort and defense and activity and stuff. But I agree, you've got to let these guys get comfortable. If Dixon's going to be your point guard, let him be your point guard and play him 30-plus minutes. Mm-hmm. Let him, get a good chunk of 7 or 8 minutes to start the half. I just think Hubert has not really discovered a lineup that he loves or sticks with. And I think the inability to do that, and yeah, that's kind of supposed to be done in November and December. And now he's still tinkering and trying to figure out if it's. I got a call coming in. Hang on, let me decline that. Like, you got to find who your point guard is and stick with them.
Right.
If it's not Kyan, then it's Dixon. I think they should bring Kyan off the bench and Luke off the bench and let them play off the ball more. And we discussed that a lot with Terrence Oglesby, who comes back on. But the lack of a defined lineup, especially on the perimeter, has really affected. You got to get comfortable. I mean, where are you going to hit Caleb? Where are you going to hit Vasar? And even defensive communications. You got to feel comfortable with who's out there. And I think it really helps. And I think that's a thing that Hubert hasn't figured out yet.
Yeah, no, I'm with you completely. Even with the Jaden Young minutes last night, I think he's someone who has far surpassed my expectations. You know, I didn't really buy into him scoring, what was it, like 25 and 30 against Virginia Tech and Syracuse last season, or Miami. Like, he had big outings against all of them. Mm-hmm. Miami quit playing serious basketball in like November last year. Syracuse and Virginia Tech weren't far behind. He was on Virginia Tech, my bad. He played well against Syracuse and Miami, two teams that I would say like weren't playing serious basketball for most of the year, to where going into the season, I'm like, dude, this kid shot sub 35% from the field, sub 30% from three. He's going to be the 10th or 11th guy. And yet he's been largely solid when he's gotten those games of anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes and has been productive to just hit his corner threes and bring energy. And that's really all Carolina's needed from him. But I still don't know if I want him in the starting lineup. You know, yeah. Even if he's going to play 14 minutes, I would rather either play Powell or Luka in hopes that like those two guys have higher ceilings, that one of them figures it out. But I mean, both of them have had, like, Powell and Luka have both had their opportunities and haven't seized it. Like, Powell was really poor defensively last night, lost his man in the corner a couple of times. Yep. I think he just shot, let me pull it up real quick. He was 1 for 4 from three. Missed 3 good looks. Luka 1 for 6 from three, and I thought he had like 2 or 3 in a row really clean looks and wasn't able to hit any of them. So I think when you look at it from that standpoint, it's like, okay, what's the harm in throwing Jaden Young in there and seeing if he gives you a spark? But I would say I'm still with you where you should have had this guard rotation figured out in December.
Well, it's also like the guards that are supposed to be hitting open threes like aren't. Yeah, and we saw a little bit more last night, but we haven't seen consistency. Like, you want Jonathan Powell. Like, if he doesn't get minutes, like, we need 2 or 3. Like, hit the open threes. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, you don't have to make every single one, but going 2 for 3, 2 for 4, 3 for 5, where it's like he's shown little bits of life where you're like, all right, he can be that guy, but then It's just not super consistent. I think he's a pretty good defender. Yeah, he did miss his man a couple times, but he's longer, and so is Dixon. He's longer, so I like those guys a little bit more because Kyan he's small and he looks small. Kind of reminds me of what they had with Elliot Cadeau. You know, just not a very physical defender, and sometimes just size and body can be a huge advantage. So if you're not going to hit threes, be a good defender, and and even with Kyan's like he's not really bringing much on offense. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's not being used properly. So that's my concern with it doesn't seem like the right fit with Kyan and Luka. Like, he's seen some flashes as well, but he's not hitting every open three, and that's what these guys are paid to do.
Yeah. With Luka, I've been a Luka believer really since he committed. I watched a lot of his SC Derby tape and I honestly thought he would come in and average like 14, 15, 16 a game pretty smoothly, and it just hasn't happened. I think he's a lot less explosive than I realized. Like, when he gets into the lane, it just seems like anytime he's attacking the basket, sometimes he'll draw a foul, but rarely converts, and doesn't really have much of an in-between game, doesn't really try to get to a floater, hasn't really shot pull-up jumpers. I think his playmaking out of ball screens is valuable. He had 3 assists last night, and I think even going back to the SMU game, I think he had 6 in that one. Like, you see flashes of it, but I am happy that at least his minutes are getting a little more consistent, somewhere in the 19 to 25-minute game for minutes per him. That's probably your best bet. Give him those open looks off the catch. And even with Kyan, I think if you want to look for positives out of this Notre Dame game, and a game where you completely out-talented them, out-physicaled them, you look at the usage of Luka and Kyan and them both getting clean looks off of those Caleb double teams. I thought Caleb was awesome passing the ball. Mm-hmm. I think that showed a lot of progress in terms of just what Carolina has seen recently in terms of teams just throwing multiple bodies at him. And if he's going to create wide open looks for Kyan, for Powell, for Luka, I mean, the offense hasn't been the issue. I think going into last night, they were the second best in offensive efficiency in ACC play per KenPom. Like, I think there's ways, because you're depending on Caleb giving you 20 and 10 every night, Henry giving you like 17 and 9. Like, that's a high enough floor. It's just what can you get a little more consistency out of the guard room? Seth Trimble has really struggled. We haven't even mentioned him yet. But can you get more consistency out of that group, and even out of those guys who are vying for minutes, who can just, like, I don't think really any
step
of them.
up.
Yeah, and even beyond that, like, I don't know if any of them outside of Seth can be a good defender, and Seth has really struggled on that end during the stretch. But who can just not be a liability? Who can not get picked on? Who can step up and make plays off ball? Who can force some more steals and help defense or whatever? Like, just these little things that could help someone separate themselves from the pack.
Yeah, I keep saying it, like, hit open threes, but you're right, with double teaming Caleb, like, there's going to be a lot of opportunities. The gravity that Henry and Caleb create, in the paint, it's going to leave a lot of opportunities. These guys have to make shots, and that, making shots, that doesn't really fall on Hubert. It falls on just, like, these guys are being paid now. You feel like you can almost yell at them a little bit more and talk about them a little bit more, because Kyan's making like $2 million or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows what Luka's making? All these guys get paid. So there's kind of like this accountability, like, yeah, you got to make these open shots. And there's a lot of guys, but there's not like this alpha scorer. Seth Trimble, and I want to give props. I mean, Dewey Burke on the Inside Carolina podcast said it, like, to Seth Trimble be a seventh man, eighth man on a really good UNC championship team, I would go more on like a sixth man. But it's a good point. Like, Seth's not a alpha scorer. Sometimes he tries to be, but he's limited with his ability to score at the rim. He's not really a 3-point shooter, like a 35 to 40% 3-point shooter. He's more of like you kind of hope and pray it goes in when he shoots. He can get hot, but he's not really an alpha perimeter scorer. He's a really good defender. He's athletic. He's great in transition. He can really score at the rim in transition when he has a little bit more openings, but they don't have the alpha scorer. I think they thought Luka would be that guy. They thought maybe Kyan could be a second or third scorer on the perimeter, but no one has stepped up. And I think that's what's limiting this team offensively, is that they don't have that consistent third scorer behind the two big men. But like you said, it's not offense. It's all defense. And stay tuned. We talked to Terrence Oglesby from the ACC Network, Field of 68. We get deep into like the nuances of what's the issue on defense, like the different, I'm not a huge X-nose guy, but how they're defending the screen, the different ways of defending the screen, the issues with how Caleb, Wilson, and Henry are defending the screen. What do you see on defense, the major concerns? Like, how can you kind of put it plainly for the common fan out there?
Going under on too many screens, helping off of shooters. I would say that's the big one.
Helping off of shooters, okay. So
yeah,
leaving open guys.
It even happened a couple times against Notre Dame in the first half where I'm trying to remember. At one point, I go back to that Jonathan Powell breakdown where I want to say he helped off the corner I can't even remember who was driving to the paint, but he helped off of Ryder Frost to Carolina. Carolina recruited Ryder Frost for a second. He never got an offer, but I know he was played on Middlesex Magic, which I think is the 3SSB circuit team, same team that Cormac Ryan played for. So there's like that connection there too with Notre Dame and just white dudes who can shoot. But yeah, all Ryder Frost is in there to shoot. And I even go back to the Stanford game where they're helping off of guys like losing Jeremy Dent-Smith, helping off of guys like Ryan Agarwal. If you look at Stanford's shot diet, like they're probably like 45% of their 3-point attempts, or excuse me, I would guess, I'll look it up right now. Sorry, I didn't have this prepped ahead of time, but I would assume more than 40% of their attempts as a team come from beyond the arc. Yeah, 43% of Stanford's field goal attempts come from long distance. That's not a team that throws it into the post. It's not a team that really has any rim pressure aside from Ibuka Okori. And watching that unfold, it's like, dude, how are you losing the guy who's 5 for 5 and Jeremy Dent-Smith? How are you going under a screen against Ryan Agarwal, who's out there to shoot threes? That's all he does. And even Ibuka Okori, I know going into that game, the percentage from three wasn't great, but he had been on a heater. And like, I vividly remember first half, they run that double screen for him where Jaren Stevenson gets switched on him and he goes under the screen. It's like a wide open three for Corey. And I think they've limited some of the switching in recent games where it's not always 1 through 5. They still had Caleb switching a lot last night. I thought Caleb brought a different level of energy defensively than we've seen in a while from him. It seems like he's responded to being challenged, and I'm assuming they've even gotten into it with film. Like, he lost his man several times throughout the West Coast trip that led to open threes. So yeah, this would go back to like some macro issues with this coaching staff.
Let's get into it.
I wonder, is there anyone who can teach defense? Because it's a sample size now where they played really good defense the final 4 weeks of Hubert's first year, the Iron 5 season. Played great defense starting in December in year 3, the season where they won the ACC. But in between the times you have this year where they've been a train wreck, last year they were just bad. I mean, they didn't have the interior presence, but again, that's on roster construction from a coaching staff perspective. The second year, despite having good length with Leaky, with Pete Nance, with Armando Bacot, they never forced turnovers, and that team was like top 50-ish defensively. Never really, like, they just don't really put any pressure on opposing ball handlers. I feel like guys get comfortable, easy looks in the paint far too often, whether it's playing that shallow drop coverage or just not heating up the ball at the point of attack. That 5 years into this, I'm like, who's responsible for coaching defense here? And what's the identity?
Well, especially like, all right, so you're playing Stanford. You've got plenty of tape on Stanford. They have 3 guys that go off against UNC, and you know those guys are, like you said, you know those guys are serious. So the game prep, like heading to that game, like what is the game prep to prepare for those 3 stars? I mean, Abuka's been fantastic, and those other 2 guys, Corey Dent-Smith, right? Jeremy Dent-Smith,
yeah,
just went off and had tons of open looks and just defensive breakdowns. All right, so that happened. You know, it was a pretty tight game. So it was a bad loss, but then you go into Cal, you have 3 days out there to prep, knowing you got your ass beat against Stanford. And then Cal goes off in the first half. And it's defense. Like, you have to make it tough. It's like they didn't learn anything from how Stanford abused them. They have 3 days to look at tape, self-scout, to scout Cal. And Cal does the same thing with just tons of open looks. And Cal's got, I mean, these guys are not these good of teams. I think Stanford's got some great players. It didn't seem like Cal has any, like, you know, hugely dominant players. I hadn't heard of many of those guys other than the Pippen kid.
Yeah, we got walked down by John Camden, who was at Delaware last year.
Yeah,
like a bad Delaware team.
One of those guys for Stanford was D2 last year.
Yeah, that was Jeremy Dent-Smith.
Jeremy Dent-Smith, yeah.
Like a D2 All-American.
It's just like, what are the assistant coaches doing? Like, who is teaching defense and who is, like, drilling? This stuff should have been done in July and August and September, like the defensive principles and how you're going to defend the different screens and like, you know, the nuances and general ball knowledge of how to teach defense. It just doesn't seem like it's there. They're doing different things. They don't have any principles nailed down. And like, I'm kind of talking to my ass because I don't really know exactly all these defensive things, but they seem lost. And the coverage on screens, like the tape is out there, and you're going to see it more and more and more from teams. So they're going to have to self-scout and realize what they're doing wrong and fix it. I mean, there's a couple things you got to fix and just communicate and know exactly what to do on each different scenario. And you just got to think these coaches are doing. But I mean, you look at Lebo, Sean May, what are they doing? Sullivan, like.
It's at some point, I know Joel Berry, love Joel Berry, had the list of like his gripes with the defense, which like, again, I give credence to his opinion as a legend of the program. I care what he has to say. I think my rebuttal to that would be like, I would be more likely to listen to, it's a player issue, not a coaching issue, if it was year 1 or year 2. It's year 5. Yeah. It's year 5. Like, you can, how many times are we going to blame the players before you look at, it starts at the top. I mean, that's the Carolina way. How often do we hear Roy Williams say, well, I just got out coached tonight? You know, like Roy said that all the time. He took accountability. That's what you heard with like the coaches. They give players the credit when they win. They take accountability when they lose. It's like it's the lot in life, but at the same time, it's Carolina. Yeah. You know, you're the coach of one of the 3 best programs of all time. It's what comes with the territory.
I mean, I think those 2 losses are really big. They're going to stand out in the season. You got to think they're going to lose a couple more on the road. This is a good team. It's talented. They have 2, I think, first-round draft picks on the roster. They're going to win a lot of games still. I think they're going to lose. You got Duke, Louisville, Virginia this weekend. There's a lot of good teams out there. Miami's good. Clemson, NC State. I don't think NC State's that good, but I think we're going to get to a point now when they lose a couple more road games, drop a home game. The pitch is going to be there for the coaching staff and for Hubert Davis. So I'm interested to see how this evolves. We don't need to get into it right now. Actually, I have to run. We've got the rankings release for 24/7 Sports coming out in an hour. Got to get on that. But I think we'd love to have you back on, Riley. There's a lot of discussion. You want to be patient, but 5 years, the patience kind of over. Like you said, at some point it falls on the coaches because these are good players. These are good athletes with a lot of Division I experience, a lot of ACC experience. They should know what to do. So at that point, it's getting it from the coaches to the players, executing it. Some of it falls on the players, of course, but tough, man. It's tough to lose. It's just tough as a UNC fan to just see them lose to SMU, Cal, Stanford, and it's kind of been that way the last 3 or 4 years. Some highs and some lows. It's very frustrating knowing that UNC. I was talking last night with somebody. It's look, UNC should always be a top 10 team. Mm-hmm. Should win. Should go to the Final Four. Once every 3 or 4 years is an expectation. Have a Final Four worthy team, and then you got to catch some luck and hit on the transfer portal and hit on a freshman and win a title. That's the expectation. Shouldn't be floating outside the top 25 and on the bubble and stuff.
This is, even going back 2 years ago when the ACC added Stanford, Cal, and SMU, I think my reaction, probably most Carolina fans' reactions, was man, why are we stuck in this bum conference? This is what they're trying to do to save the league. We're bringing these 3 teams that offer nothing really in terms of football or basketball. Lo and behold, SMU's been pretty good at football, but now you go 0-3 against them this year.
Yeah,
that's unacceptable, dude. You can't.
Yeah,
I know they're all on the road, but the third one especially was a non-contest against Mark Madsen and the Cal Bears. Again, you get walked down by a Delaware transfer. That at some point it's just tough to not put it on the staff to say you got to be better, especially when you have the best front court pairing we probably had in a decade plus. It'll be the highest drafted Carolina player since Kobe White. And you could even go back if Caleb goes 3rd or 4th. I can't remember the last time a UNC player was drafted that high. Do you have to go back to 2005? Marvin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Is there someone?
Was it good call? Yeah.
Anyone? Yeah, I don't think anyone was top 5 in 2009 that I'm forgetting. But it feels like the opportunities get squandered. And I've had friends that say oh, it's tougher right now in this era where it is. But you look at teams like Houston and UConn and Florida and Duke and Alabama and year after year, some of those have less resources financially than UNC does, and they're churning out a competent product that's always top 15, top 10, and you don't have to be a 1 or 2 seed every year, but I think you pretty much need to be a top 4 seed in the tournament year in, year out. Maybe you can have bad years are going to happen. Maybe every once in a while you stumble into a 6 or a 7 seed, and you live with that if the good years are sort of balanced there. But you and I were texting about this. I'm looking at Vanderbilt this past weekend. I know they just dropped a big one at Arkansas, but Mark Byington's in his 2nd year and has a top 15 team by all the analytics with 2 UNC rejects, a Boston College transfer, a Cornell transfer, a 3-star point guard out of high school in Tyler Tanner, and they'd probably be favored by 3.5, 4 points if you put them on a neutral court with Carolina right now. That's where this can't happen, man.
Dude, at this level, coaching makes a huge difference. Knowing where to put your players in position to succeed, defensive coaching, calling plays, having a good offense that uses your players right. We're not using Kyan and Luka the correct way. So that goes back to roster construction. We'll get into it. Love to have you back on maybe in a couple weeks when we may be talking more about coaches and we'll drop some names. It is frustrating. Yeah, it's UNC basketball, top 5 team. You can't be getting beat by Cal, Stanford, SMU. And you going back to last year, losing those games, it's just the consistency has to be there. So even though they beat Notre Dame, it's still concerned about how Virginia, tough game ahead, and we could be right back where we were after the Cal and Stanford game. Riley, really appreciate your time, guys. Check out Rowback. New promo code BIGHITTERS20. BIGHITTERS20. 20% off your order. We have Terrence Oglesby coming on right after this to talk Cal, Stanford, UNC defense, UNC offense. Really good conversation with him. Riley, really appreciate your time, man. And now we bring on Terrence Oglesby of the ACC Network, Field of 68. What else, Terrence?
All of it. All of it. I'm just happy to be here and talk hoop. That's it really.
All
So
right,
thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And yeah, talk a little Carolina hoop. Why not?
let's get into it. We're recording Thursday morning at 9:11. So this is after the Notre Dame game, but we're going to focus on the Cal and Stanford losses. I was in Puerto Rico, so I didn't watch them live, but I watched them this week. And you were in studio with the ACC Network, and I mean, it was the fan base has kind of reached a point now with this team and Hubert. I mean, losing to SMU, probably should have lost to Wake Forest, and then dropping and getting embarrassed by Cal and Stanford. And the defensive issues remains the biggest concern on the perimeter. That video you sent me. Can you dive into, from a general perspective of what the main issue is with UNC's perimeter defense out west and against Wake and SMU for that matter?
It's just small guards, and I think watching Notre Dame a little bit last night, Notre Dame doesn't have this guard that's creative off the bounce. They don't have this guy that's dynamic off the pick and roll. So it didn't mask any of the problems, but the problems are the problems. And the problems are they can't close off small guards because positioning is off a little bit, especially in screen and rolls. And here's the deal. I feel like I've harped on it and harped on it and harped on it. And I actually feel kind of bad, but Carolina fans seem to get a kick out of it. All these problems are pretty fixable. It's just a matter of whenever you're playing against smaller guards, you have to be really diligent in how your spacing is. And then, if you're somebody like Caleb Wilson, who I thought was much better yesterday against Notre Dame, and the attention to detail was much better, it's staying disciplined for the entirety of the possession. And that's hard sometimes when you're playing 37 and a half minutes or whatever he's playing. I will say that the screen and roll defense needs to be a little bit better. We didn't see any improvements in that against Notre Dame, but against Stanford and Cal, that was a struggle because Day-Day Ames is really quick. Justin Pippen's really quick. Same with Ibuka Okori, how good he is in screen and roll. But those by and large are the biggest problems.
So how is UNC defending screen and rolls, and what goes into how you coach that? Is it the players just not executing that? Are they coaching it in a way that needs to be refined? I'm sure obviously there's multiple ways to defend a screen and roll as well, or a screen in general. What in particular do they need to improve on? Is the drop coverage, is hedging out more, getting skinny through the screen? What can UNC do to improve there?
There's several things. One, I think Seth Trimble can get up into the ball more a little bit whenever he's guarding a ball screen, but especially when it's closer to the 3-point line, just so he can get over. But I think just clarity in what they're trying to do. To me, that's the biggest thing. And half the time I'm watching Vasar whenever they're playing Stanford, I don't know if he's dropping. I don't know. Well, I know when he's dropping, excuse me. I don't know if they're trapping. I don't know if they're hard hedging. I don't know if he needs to get back. I don't know if he needs to stay up. And he's in this kind of weird no man's land to where Ibuka Okori is super relaxed handling the ball on the perimeter. And because of that, it basically just opens up the game for everybody else. And the first thing everybody points to when you look at the statistics with Carolina is, well, everybody's shooting the 3 ball really well. And that's true. But that starts because you're scrambling from the point of the pick and roll. And whenever you're coming over and helping late, or you're coming over and having to help too far, you're leaving these massive gaps open around the perimeter, and guys are able to test the wind before they shoot it. I did see a lot better effort against Notre Dame, but Notre Dame doesn't present the same type of problems that North Carolina's been dealing with. Notre Dame presented some problems that a lot of the non-conference teams did, and that they have a bunch of shooting. They don't have this dynamic guard. And Carolina has the length and athleticism to deal with that as long as they're disciplined. The screen and roll thing is a whole different ballgame.
It also seems like there's just a lack of communication or just personal accountability on guarding your man and in transition, knowing who you have to get and getting up on him against Stanford and especially against Cal. Just too many easy opportunities from 3 in transition within the half-court offense. I don't know if some of this, you got to think the coaching staff is coaching this, I hope. So is it on the players? Is it how they teach it or drill it? I mean, I think fans want to blame Hubert a lot because they're kind of fed up with the way these seasons have been going when they get to ACC play. but also I think there's a lot of personal accountability on how the players need to execute.
I think, I think the kid's playing hard. Like I really do. And basketball's fluid. It's not like football when you can sit and you can evaluate the formations and all that stuff. Like there's always going to be, but the tendencies have to be recognized. And I do think there's a definite effort in scouting set plays, but when it gets fluid, I feel like sometimes the principles break down.
Yeah.
And that's something that's kind of hard to teach on the fly because those are habits. Like habits, those habits are developed in the summer. Those habits are developed in the fall and football season. Those habits being one step off the line or being up the line. How do you want to play? What are your angles when guarding pick and rolls? Those habits, for the big man coming out to either hedge, stay flat, or flat the ball screens, or even drop the ball screens, whatever you may do, like those habits are taught over the course of a year. And while you do have transfer, sure, like you get these guys by July, you've got a long time to develop these habits. So in terms of transition defense, that's taught because at the college level, high school's different because not everybody can shoot it. At the college level, you essentially have to have one guy cover the rim and then everybody has to run wide, and then you flood to your help spots because so many guys are able to are able to shoot. So you have to be really diligent of where everybody's at, and you have to run wide. So it changes everything. Everybody used to run back to the paint, and then you fanned out and found your guy. Not the case necessarily anymore in transition defense. You have one guy that covers the paint. Hopefully it's a big. If it's not, you have the big come down and kick him out. Outside of that, you run wide. So it's just kind of it's different in how it's played right now. And if you aren't adjusting constantly, it's tough on the players because I do feel like the players are playing hard. Now, everybody makes boneheaded mistakes. Everybody doesn't do the correct thing all the time. Communication falters at times, no matter who you're coaching. But limiting those things with your habits, I think, are the biggest thing.
So let's talk personnel. They haven't really they don't really have a set starting lineup. I mean, last night you saw Jaden Young and Derek Dixon get the start in the perimeter, along with Seth Trimble. Kyan started against Stanford, but was benched against Cal, and Derek Dixon got the start. Luke has kind of been in and out, along with Jaron Stevenson. Jonathan Powell is in the mix there as well. So there's just a lot of different pieces, and they haven't figured out what really works. There's not like, one guy's getting 35 minutes. Seth Trimble's obviously in the starting lineup, but like, who do you like from that you think Hubert should roll with as the point guard? As the three, it just seems like they have a lot of like B and C parts and not many alphas. And you would hope this would be figured out
on the perimeter.
Yeah, perimeter.
Seth Trimble's your alpha.
Yeah, but is he? Yeah, I mean he's gonna have to be, but he's not really that alpha scorer that they've had in the past. So who at point guard though? Like who do you like from Dixon or Kyan? Luka's kind of a role player now coming off the bench.
You know what? I think it's really hard for the guards right now, and it's kind of the same thing as last year. It's like you're making one part of the court happy, and the other part kind of gets stale.
Yep.
It's the guards were such a focal point last year, being that they were trying to score every possession. Well, it's this year. It's the front court, and whenever you get a guy like Kyan Evans, who I think he's terrific. I thought he was really good at Colorado State. Did Carolina go and grab him thinking he was going to shoot 45%? Sure, but coming from a player who's done this, who has played in these motion offenses, who's played with teams that are quick and read and react, and you have great years doing that, to going back to a team at Carolina, a lot of set pieces, a lot of catching or a lot of passing and going to the corner and standing, that's hard. Like you have no rhythm. And especially for a team like Carolina, they're running 4 or 5 ball screens. They're cross screening. They're trying to get Caleb Wilson in 15 feet. Carolina knows where their shot's coming from. Where Kyan Evans benefited at Colorado State was he was constantly moving. He was constantly moving in what they were doing offensively. They had another playmaker and shot creator in Neat Clifford. They had a bunch of guys who could dribble, pass, and shoot and make different decisions. And he would find gaps in the defense. That's why he shot 44% from three. Now he's initiating the offense and he's going and standing in the corner. And not saying that's happening every time, but I'm just saying how difficult that is to make that adjustment to being movement. You're part of the offense. You're flowing to, hey, go stand in the corner. And you better make it when we pass to you. It's hard. That's kind of where I'm at. But if that's what you're going to do, I'd probably go Derek Dixon because he seems to be comfortable doing that, and he's bigger. The problem is he's pretty slow. So, like, I think that's kind of your hang up right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think UNC fans are at all happy with anything Kyan does. He had 9 points last night. He looked better. He hit some open threes. He went 3 for 5 from three. But against Cal and Stanford, I wrote it up here. 28 minutes against Stanford, 3 points, 2 assists from your starting point guard. And then against Cal, 10 minutes, kind of got benched, 0 points.
But like your
assist.
numbers aren't going to be good if you're just passing it. Like,
but he's not getting the assists either. Like he's not.
But how? How, Ross? How's he going to get the assist? Like what pick and roll are they setting for him up top to where he's getting in the paint and can spray out? They're not.
Yeah. So, the offense is not fitting what he is good at. I mean, I think he plays off the ball.
Any point guard. Well, and the thing is too is like you're not getting assist when you're throwing the ball in the mid post and you're isolating. You're not getting assists when Caleb Wilson catches the ball out on the perimeter and he's the one using a 4 or 5 ball screen. It's not happening. Like there's no assist to be had. Not to mention the fact that it's not like they get a rebound and kick out to him to where he can make something in transition. Caleb Wilson gets a rebound, he's dribbling the ball up the floor.
Yeah.
Like there's no assist to be had. And to me, like that's the most frustrating part when you just sit and you look at the stats. And everybody in Carolina Nation looks at the stats. But you're not looking at the context of the stats. And it's very easy to pick up the paper and then look at those things. And I just, to me, Kyan, I'm not going to say he's been screwed. That's the wrong way because he's being paid a lot of money to be there. But it's like, I think we're looking at some of the wrong things sometimes when we're evaluating his play and not taking into account, like, hey, Carolina doesn't put him in position to be this playmaker. Ever.
Yeah.
Like ever. And Bogovac too. Like Bogovac is used to playing a certain way. So what happens is he averages 15 points a game in Montenegro. If you go back and look at his film, he's coming off screens. They're creative in how he gets his shot. His footwork is flawless, by the way. Like it's flawless. But like they're setting pin downs and then turning him back into flares and he's getting off to the corner and like there's all these creative actions for him. And he was the main cog there. A guy like that can find his way in a motion offense if he's constantly hunting. But Carolina doesn't do that. So, like, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. I just feel like some of the guys they brought in are worth the money. They just, it's for what Carolina's doing, it's making it extremely difficult for them to be effective in the vein that Carolina fans want them to be effective. They're scoring 90 points, Ross.
Yeah, the offense doesn't seem like the big issue.
They're scoring 90 points, but then like Luka and Kyan Evans are just getting trashed. Like, and I don't think it's right. To be honest with you.
I would say that they don't add much on defense. Luka and Kyan, they're not.
I agree with that.
Plus defenders. So if you're not making open shots, look. And last night they made open shots. I think they have the capability to do that. I just think they both should play off the ball. You put Dixon at the point guard spot, and then you try. I mean, they just need. But I mean, now we're pretty deep in the season. Like you just move Kyan off the ball and let him get open, run off screens. Same with Luka. Let them run off screens, play on the perimeter, hit the corner jumper. They just don't have they kind of missed at the point guard spot. They missed, like, I think Kyan was like their 4th or 5th pick in the transfer portal. And they overpaid for him. They missed on a couple guys, and that's who they ended up with. So it goes back to roster construction, how important that is, and how important the point guard role is at UNC. Yeah.
I'm not willing to cannonball into they missed. I'm not ready for that. Yeah, I'm not ready for that. He just hasn't played. It's just a completely different deal. And I know, like, being a former shooter, I'm old now. Having to stand still is really, really tough. There's probably, there's NBA teams. Every NBA team probably has a guy on each team that can come in off the bench, not play for 36 minutes or something like that. step into one and shoot it. I'm telling you, Ross, it's hard. It's freaking hard as a player.
Yeah.
I'm speaking strictly as a player now. Like, you have no rhythm. You're not loose. You're not touching the ball because as soon as one guy touches it, it's done. What I would do is like, hey, Kyan, if that ball goes up, I would try to find other ways to get rhythm, pick up full court, guard. Just try to put some pressure on the ball, stab at it. You might not get steals, but at least you can feel like you're part of the action and part of the game. Like, there's other ways to kind of find your rhythm. The way they're playing, their numbers aren't going to be loud.
So how is UNC like? What is their type of offense like? As a
it's stagnant.
Really,
they're calling plays. They're calling plays
every time down.
I mean, unless it's like in a semi-break where they can get one guy to break everything down. But a lot of times, even so, when they don't call a play, it ends up in the mid-post.
Yeah.
And it's not fluid. It's not fluid. But the concern isn't the offense, Ross. They're scoring. It's just like, I think a lot of Carolina fans are like, hey, if they're going to score 90 points, that's great. Why don't we have somebody that's 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" at the point who can do some of those things? That's where Derek Dixon comes in. He's just not the most fleet of foot. So, but defensively, I think is where the issue is. But even there, like the bigs are kind of clogging everything up there, or basically allowing themselves to be drug out, and it's putting these guards in a bad spot.
Yeah. So do you think are teams seeing what Cal, SMU, Cal, and Wake Forest are they seeing that and they know exactly what to do? Like, what do you do as a coaching staff to adapt, knowing that look, it's on tape now that there's certain ways to beat us from the perimeter. Like, how do you adjust? Is there different ways you can do to adapt to the issues that you showed on tape so far?
Yeah. I think I would probably simplify a little bit for Vasar and Caleb's sake. Simplify your ball screen coverages. They're basically switching 1 through 4, and they're 1 through 4, and they're trying to string out Vasar. That's basically what's happening with their defense. I think the big thing whenever you look at Carolina is small guards. Like, everybody's like, if my guards get space, I can get a paint touch, and because they're either getting beat so bad, the defense is getting to the paint, or the defense is having to completely contract. Like, the threes are really easy. Like, Notre Dame didn't have that. So, yeah, I said that.
Yeah. I think it's just tough because you finally have the 4 and the 5 seem great offensively, and you think you have the pieces, just not coming together. I mean, those Cal and Stanford loss. I don't think they're middle of the road ACC teams, right? And then Notre Dame. I don't think that game means anything. Notre Dame's
it doesn't
bottom
mean anything.
cellar.
That was one of those can't lose games.
Yeah, cellar dweller.
There's about 4 of those built into the schedule this year. 4 of them. Where last year it was like 10.
Yeah.
So I think that's the positive aspect of this whole thing. In the ACC, you only have 4 like can't lose games. Last year there were like 10 can't lose games. Now, like, SMU goes to Wake Forest. Wake Forest has struggled, and it's a quad 1 win, at least for that moment, right? So I think that's the positive thing about the league. Like, you're going to be able to have these opportunities. And keep in mind, too, like, Carolina very much in the tournament picture. So it's
not good enough, man. It's not good enough to make the tournament.
It's hard to make the tournament.
Yeah, I know, but
I think
standards.
I think the interesting point now is like, instead of Carolina being 11 deep like they were at one point, because it was Carolina and it was like you were picking between just schools. Now that the playing field's level, it's been a struggle too.
Oh yeah, I think the modernization of college basketball has affected
Carolina.
UNC.
It's hurt Carolina a lot. Now Carolina fans are realizing, hey man, this is what like Clemson had to deal with. This is what Florida State had to deal with. Like, and they found ways to work.
We're very aware.
Georgia Tech has to deal with. It's hard. Getting to the tournament's hard, man. Hard.
UNC used to bring 5 stars off the bench, and the next year they were the starters, and this year it's just not like that. The last couple of years since Roy Williams left.
This year's Jonathan Powell, who's been really good, but it's different. To your point, it's different.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like the Jaden Young thing. Starting him last night was interesting. You didn't really expect that, but he
must be giving great effort
in practice.
Yeah, he must be getting great effort. He must be an energy spark in practice who's done all the right things. And Jaden Young's, he's pretty hot and cold, man. He can get going. All his shots are from 3, but his efforts there. He's been about the right things.
Yeah.
He's hit some big shots throughout the course of his career. Had some great games last year for Virginia Tech. It's just like, where do we find our spark? They're still struggling to find that spark. Like, who's the guy that can kind of set it off besides Caleb Wilson?
Big one this weekend against Virginia. We'll get you out of here. Found out you went to the same high school as my dad, Bradley High School in Cleveland. How'd you end up there from Norway?
My dad played in Norway, met my mom, and then my dad's from Tennessee. He's from outside of Knoxville. And then he took a job. We were in Florida for like all of 3 months, and then my dad took a job in Tennessee with a nursing home company. And yeah, I mean, that was pretty much how that whole thing happened. And we moved to Cleveland, Tennessee, and yeah, there are a lot of tough people there. A lot of blue collar families, a lot of tough people, and they love their high school sports. And it was just a great town for me to grow up in. And I love Cleveland. I still go back every summer at least once for the Bradley Central golf tournament, just to make sure that I can, contribute my little bit. So it's a great place. Love it.
I think my dad graduated in 1965. He was a drum major there and went to Georgia Tech and was a drum major at Georgia Tech. So I went there a couple times. I don't have much family there anymore, so it's very interesting. Also, why did you only play 2 years at Clemson? Did you just decide to leave and go pro?
Yes. That's what happened. Yeah, I was playing the 2 position at Clemson. I was good. I had some 2 good years. I was I was 6th on the all freshman team voting. My freshman year, averaged 10 points and change, 11 points. Went to the European Championships after my freshman year and led the European Championships in scoring, and then came back for one more season at Clemson and realized, hey, if I'm going to play at the NBA level, I got to play the point. And I went over to Europe and got lost and ended up there for 8 years. And I tried to Steve Kerr it because the game was different then. I was going to try to be a Steve Kerr or Mario Chalmers or a guy who played off of superstars, and I knew that if I was going to do that, I had to be a point guard. And went over there and had a couple of things happen. The first team I signed with went bankrupt, so I never got my money. The second team I signed with, I got there for 2 months. We lost 3 games in a row, and they wanted to save the money for next year, so they cut every import except for the locals. And then ended up in Spain for 2 years, Sweden for 2 years, a year in France, a year in the Republic of Georgia, went to Sweden 1 more year, and then played in the G League, which is where I had to go over there and stand still. And that's hard. So I sympathize with some of these guards at Carolina.
Awesome. I mean, I'm sure we could do a podcast, an hour-long podcast on the life outside of basketball on the different European leagues. It'd be really fun. Terrence, really appreciate your time. You're great on the AC Network. Is this your first year with them, or second year?
This is my first year on a consistent contract with them. I've been up at studio, I want to say, let's see, 3 times last year.
Okay.
In studio, and obviously been doing games for them for 2 years. And then this is my 3rd year doing games. This is my first year actually on a contract where they extended me out.
Okay.
And to where I have a higher number. I'm hoping that continues to change. We'll see if it continues to jump because I really enjoy doing it. And it's my first year being a consistent piece, and I've been happy so far.
So you go up to Connecticut and you do games in the ACC around the area.
Yeah, and then they also dabble me a little bit in the SEC. So I have Mississippi State at Vanderbilt at Mississippi State this Saturday.
Cool.
And then for the most part, though, ACC.
And then
down the ACC.
Hornets.
Yeah, so I do the Charlotte Hornets pre-half and post-game shows, which for me has been great because it gave me about 100 reps.
Yeah.
Going up and doing those games and doing the studio for those games. So I've done a lot over the last few years, not a lot of sleep.
Yeah, that's a busy schedule. And you got to deal with Hansborough and Goodman on the field of 68. It seems like every once in a while too.
No, they're great guys, man. I really like Tyler.
He's been on the show before. He's a friend.
He's fantastic, man. Tyler Hansborough is like, people don't realize, like, nobody loves Carolina like Tyler Hansborough loves Carolina. And that's God's honest truth, man. He bleeds blue. Like he is just a high quality individual. And to be honest with you, seeing the relationships, and this is something that I mean right now, seeing the relationships that Carolina players had with each other, and outside of like Rashad McCants,
Yeah.
like the relationship they have together, like I'm really jealous of, because we didn't necessarily have that at Clemson. We just didn't. And I'm friends with about 3 of the guys that I played with, maybe. And it's like, no, it's when I see Jere Grant, I'm really happy, who's still playing. When I see Trevor Booker, I'm really happy. When I see Jonah Bays, who was my roommate in a walk-on, it makes me really happy. I don't have like this consistent like relationship with, and I'm sure that's probably my doing more than anybody else's, but what Carolina has and what they've had for years, where they just it's the Carolina family and all that stuff. I think that's just incredible, and I think Brownell down at Clemson now has fostered that with his guys. I didn't play for Brad. I worked for Brad. I didn't play for Brad. So it's I mean it's a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, the coaching continuity helps from Dean to Roy and now to Hubert, and it even transcends different teams and classes and stuff. And Eric Hoots, I think, has a lot to do with it there, because he's been through all those things. But all right, Terrence, really appreciate your time. Hopefully, maybe get you back on before the tournament or something. I know you're busy though, so we do appreciate your time. Thanks, man.
Thank you.